I was about to post a couple mix videos, again, a small series, but thought about it and decided to do a studio tour because I have not done a studio tour since 2016, January 30th of 2016. And a lot in my studio has changed since then. So we're going to go over a lot in detail and I'm going to try and cover a lot of different gear. So if you are not a gear slut, you might get sick of hearing me speak and not make it all the way through the video. But those of you who are, you'll be here to the end. Let's get started. So first things first, let's talk about a very important part of the studio, the room. All right. This is my home recording studio, and it is literally half of my garage. This is my mix room. I don't necessarily record in here. I record in a spare room I have on the other side of that wall. I call it my fireplace room. And I have, on this other side of this door, I have isolation for amps. So the room is very important when it comes to a recording studio, because if you do not have it set up right, you're going to get all sorts of issues in your mix. So I have a cloud overhead. I have absorption panels on each side of the wall. That back wall and the corners are filled. It's kind of hard to tell, but underneath these clouds right here, there is more absorption. And that's all Rockwool 703, 704, forget the exact number, Owens Corning. These I got from a professional studio downtown. I was an engineer at a building, and they were moving. They gave them to me. These I built. That cloud I built. Those clouds I got from the same building, including all this green absorption I have on the walls. Now let's talk about the core of my mix setup. First things first, I have a Mac. It's an iMac 2020. It has, I believe, 64 gigs of RAM. Yep, I have 64 gigs of RAM. And the reason why I chose the iMac 2020 is because it's one of the Macs that you could actually buy with low memory in it, like, 16 gig, and then add your own memory in it. It's pretty easy, and I made a video on how to do that because Mac is ridiculous how much they charge for memory sticks. They charge $1,200. You get the same sticks, the exact same sticks, for $300 on Amazon. All right, let's look at my storage. I have multiple storage locations. My main hard drive that's on this computer, the Macintosh HD, you can see I have 829 gigabytes of a terabyte left. That's because everything I record and every video I do, I don't use that hard drive to store it. I use these two. And it's Samsung's T7s. And then additional to that, I have more hard drives that I back stuff up on. So plenty of storage. I chose an iMac 2020 and I operate Pro Tools. I also have Logic Pro X. For the first probably 8 years of me recording, I used Logic Pro X, and then I switched over to Pro Tools as I started dealing with more and more bands. It was the standard, and I felt like any DAW will work. You stick with it and you learn it, much like monitors. But it was important to be able to share files and sessions with other studios and working at other studios. For converters, a Burrow mothership. I have 20 in and 32 out. These monitors are Genelec 8050As. I think I've had them for about 10, 12 years now. So you need to be able to monitor your speakers. This is the inward connection DMS5. It is a discrete monitoring system that you could run full sessions off of. It has headphone amp, talkback, auxiliary input, multiple inputs for different sources, multiple outputs for different speakers, external device, all top of the line Ember Connections made stuff right. If I'm doing pre-production, any kind of basic tracking, anything that has to do without being a full mix session, that's the core of the system that I use right there. Even if I'm just tracking guitars, like I'm in pre-production right now with a band. I turn on a couple of preamps, my monitor section, my converters, and obviously my computer and my monitors. And we run full sessions like that. Not all this equipment is on all the time. I actually turned it on for this video because I like the lights, and you guys do too. If I have a rock band in here, they track the tape, I'll dump it to Pro Tools, mix it on my console with all this outboard gear, and we'll have a good old fun time, and it is amazing. But that's not always a reality. Not every band could afford to mix that way, track that way, and just spend that much time on stuff, especially when recall is not as good as my second option. My second option is I track a band in Pro Tools, digitally, no tape machine, don't even turn on my console. I do most of the mixing in the box, and then for the sweet, colorful flavor, I stem it out to my API summing mixer, which is loaded with 325 cards and has a mix bus insert. So I could insert a mix bus compressor, EQ, anything I want. And I stem out 16 channels to this summing mixer. I'm still monitoring off my inward connection master section. This is the master section for my summing mixer if I hit that, and it's the master section for my in the box mix if I hit that. Now on my console, I have a master channel strip, and it has the same op amps, the SBA 690s, that are inside this inward connection master section. Here's one here. Let's talk about gear. That is a 1983 JH24 24-track master recorder, multi-track recorder. I refurbished it, cleaned it up, and it is solid. I don't have any issues with it. And when one does arise, I repair it. Same thing with my console. It is a 1976 MCI 428, and it lived in one studio its entire life, 4th Street Recording in Santa Monica. Lots of multi-platinum records were done on this. Lots of major bands that you heard on the radio growing up like I have did their records on this board. If you look at their client list, it was done on this board. And I had to refurbish this board. When I got it, it was in bad shape, had electrical problems, took it all apart, pulled every channel. I have a video of me going through the inside and outside of this board, just explaining how it works, so you could go back and watch that video. It's called MCI 428, Inside and Out. Now let's move on to some outboard gear. Over here, up here, I have a master recorder. This is a Tascam DA3000, and I basically use this when I'm mixing and show my videos as I'm mixing. This is the master recorder capturing a stereo mix off the board. So that's how you're hearing me mix in real time. Under that, I have a couple of outboard effects. I mainly use effects in the box. Even if I'm mixing on my board, I'll just have them come out, hit my board, and come down to mix bus. But I have a couple cool outboard effects, and they're not expensive. You can get them very cheap. An Effectron 2, an old SPX 90, and a PCM 60. And just cheap effects that you could get for a good price. On this tower of power right here, I just have a bunch of spare tubes, spare op amps, old API, Avitas down there, newer API, Avitas, just tons of op amps, the VF600 from Steve Furlap, the Mighty Cappy 0252s, and the Avitas. And I got more, but I keep these for testing purposes at hand. Gary Barnett, those are his APIs, and these are his spheres. And there's more stuff around. These are the Sage audios that go in this board. Coming up, I have a Alicia Expressor. I love this compressor. It could be clean, it could be smashing dirty, Awesome compressor. Use it on guitars quite a bit, drums quite a bit, and some other buses like a vocal bus, multiple backup vocals, stuff like that. Spare transformers, old APIs, more spare tubes. Oh, now my dead back there, and that's that. Oh, and some old 1604 API channel strips. So let's move on to this outboard rack really quick. This did not happen overnight. If you compare the video I did in 2016 to this video, you'll see that I do have some more gear. What started me getting more outboard gear? Well, that tape machine, it was not ideal to mix off a summing mixer when you have a tape machine because I needed volumes on every channel, blah, blah, blah. So I get a console. And I start mixing on it, and it sounds so beautiful. I'm like, oh, I want compression on this channel, that channel. So you start picking up some compression, right? And there's EQs on every channel, but I don't want the same EQ for everything. So I started picking up EQs. That's how it happens. That's how it works. And this is how I have accumulated this amount of gear. It's not a lot. I feel like I have just the right amount in each area. So let's go through it. And I sort of have it divided. I'm a very organized person. I have compression on the left, converters, EQs up the center, preamps on the right, and then I have a little bit more compression up here. So we're going to go through each piece, and I will start from the bottom and go up. This is a vintage 1970s DBX 160. It is an amazing sounding compressor. I love DBX compression. I use it a lot. It's probably most of my compression that I use is DBX. And I'm talking about everything from the DBX 160, which has gotten kind of expensive, to a pair of 160As. I love DBX compression. It has a sound that I'm used to, and that's why I use it. So DBX 160, Audioscape just remade a clone of these, and I really want to hear it. I just haven't had the chance yet. Up here is the same era. It's a DBX 162. It's basically the 160, but a stereo version. And I use this for drum bus. You could use it for mix bus. It's kind of heavy, so I'd like to put it in parallel. It's a great compressor. It has a very thick, gooey sound, just like the 160. And let me tell you about these 160s. If you see the needle moving, you're probably compressing a little too much. It does not take a lot to get these sounding gooey. Next up is the Chandler Germaniums. Great compressors. There's a bit of a learning curve to them. There's a lot going on with them, but awesome, thick, another pair of gooey sounding compressors. What's great about these is it has a wet-dry parallel, so you could totally smash a track and then dial back the wet-dry and just get a perfect balance of what you want to do to the tracks. Kick and snare, drum bus, vocals, guitars. I use these on guitars a lot, especially if I record guitars digitally. I will use these on guitars. You guys see these in a lot of different studios. Pair of distressors, snare, amazing. Kick, great, depending on the style of music. They're just very fast, and that's why people like them. They can be very fast. And what they do to snare is just really great. Vocals, there's nothing I have not used these on either. To tell you the truth, I use them on vocals. I've used them on, smashing drum rooms, great. Kick, snare, guitars, and just overall, there's a reason why they call this the Swiss Army knife of compressor, because it could do anything. Fatso, it's supposed to stand for something tape simulator. I forget. To me, it doesn't sound like tape, but I do like it a lot. I use this mainly on group backup vocals is what I use the Fatso on. API 2500, great drum bus compressor. I tried it on the mix bus. To me, it's a little too heavy-handed. The new one has a wet-dry feature on it, which I wish this one did, but I'm not going to buy the new one and sell this one. I'm just, it is what it is. I'm happy with it. The one compressor that I feel like I can never get rid of, it is an Allen Smart C2, and it just has a snappy way of treating the mix bus to make it sound almost like a radio mix, I should say. Just a couple dB, 3 dB of gain reduction, 3 dB of gain reduction. Amazing. I actually have this compressor hard patched into the Alicia X filter. And when I'm mixing, it doesn't matter if I'm mixing in the box, on my summing mixer, or my board, I have this inserted on the mix bus from the beginning of the mix. I don't mix and then put it on afterwards. This is always on my mix bus. And I just kiss it lightly. And then as I'm going through, I might dial it a little bit more. So I actually just did live sound for a show on the south side of Chicago, a town called Blue Island. I actually grew up in Blue Island. And I did live sound, and the headlining band was band off Epitaph Records. They're called Off With Their Heads. So I'm doing live sound, scraped a PA together, borrowed something from my friend, another friend. We got it all together, and the show went well. And I captured the mix bus, or the stereo mix left and right, off this little Spirit board, 16-channel board, on my Tascam DA3000. And I was listening to the mix here, and I put the Allen Smart and Alicia X filter on it, and it sounded good. And when I added the crush feature, it just made it sound a lot better. Let's move up. DBX 160A. These are great on kick, snare, vocals, bass guitar. 1176. I use these for tracking. Actually, I was just doing vocals the other day for pre-production and tracking vocals. So you could use them for kick, snare. I mainly use them for vocals. Up here, I got 4 325 cards, vintage ones, same cards that are in the old API consoles. You already seen the Amber Connection master section and my summing mixer. We'll move over here. Burl Mothership, already went over it. Let's talk about patching in a studio. I got 2 patch bays here. This bottom one and this top one. The bottom one, I have all my DA, my digital audio out from my converters, normalize to my console, my MCI inputs. So without patching anything, if I unplug everything, this automatically lines up to my board. So all 32 DA lines up on my board without any patching. So digital audio output from Burl 1 ends up on channel 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down the board. And then same thing with my preamps. I got some preamps here. Up here, I have all my preamps normalized to the AD inputs of my Burls. So without making any patch points at all, this API ends up on AD1, input 1. All 10 of those are the first 10 AD inputs. And then so on, all the way up, it just lines up. So the goal when you set up a studio is to have the bare minimum amount of patching required to get a session going fast. So if I want to record to my tape machine, what do I have to do? I got to grab my preamps and patch them over to the input of my JH24. So the input of my JH24 is 1 through 24 right here. So I would have to patch whatever preamps out to the inputs of my JH24. And then to mix off tape on my board, I have to go from the outputs of my JH24 and patch to the inputs of my board. So there is patching required depending on how I want to run my studio. No big deal. Again, if I want to mix on my API summing mixer, which is 16 inputs, I got to patch out the DA, the digital audio output. The output from my Pro Tools comes out of the DA, and I would patch it into my API inputs. That's how that works. Now, we'll move up to here, and we'll get into patching a little bit. I'm going to go over a little bit on my board over there in a minute. So I have a pair of API 550A EQs, a pair of API 550B EQs, and a pair of old 550s. These are the original APIs right here, 6 of them. And I'll do kick, snare, drum bus, guitar bus, or whatever. This is old. And that's it. Just 6 API EQs. Moving up here is the Dolby DBX 361s. And I did a video on these. a while back showing what they do on vocals and snare, and nothing sounds like this. There's no decapitator, there's no plug-in. Go watch that video, Dolby 361, search it on YouTube, and you'll hear what that does. And it's quite magical. Audioscape, great company. They do good clones. And here's a pair of basically Pultec clones. They do make things rounder, and they do sound good. Very good. So you see here I have mix left and mix right. So at one point I had this on the mix bus, but the last time I definitely had them on vocal and bass, I think. Or something like that. I don't remember. Let me show you something. Do any of you have a dangerous music knife like I do? Look at that. That's the only dangerous music piece of gear that I have. I do want to get the Bax EQ, and I want to compare it to the Alicia X Filter. I heard the Bax EQ in person. I forget the guy's name. Long hair, skinny dude. I think he owns Dangerous Music. I was at an event with him, and I heard the Bax EQ in person, and I was impressed. And it might live right here in the future. I don't know, though. We'll see. I'm pretty happy with my setup right now. But yeah, right now, this is the only piece of Dangerous Music gear that I own. Moving up, Dynamite. This is, I think, from the 70s. Might be 80s. I'm not sure. Drum room. Smashing anything. It's a heavy-handed compressor. It's got a sound, and it's a very cool sound. This is a copper tone mic. It's an effect mic. Basically sounds like an AM radio, old school. Pretty cool. All right, so let's move down. Here's my guitar pedals. This is an older Big Muff, not the newer one you could buy from Guitar Center. I think this is from the 80s. It might be 90s, but I compared it to a new one from Guitar Center. I bought this used from Guitar Center and a brand new one. Brought them both home. There was no denying this one sounded better. I don't know what it is. Could be the transistors, whatever. So basically, I have a reverb pedal, the analog chorus, a delay. That's the Wazacraft. I used to have the original. I like this one better. I had the one from the 80s. I think this one is better. You could do more with it. This is an old one, and this is a G7. Great pedal. Radial ABY pedal. This is just a tuner, a wah-wah pedal. That's an original Crybaby. And my favorite boost pedal, the EP Booster. This is new. This is the Atlantic Nux. Atlantic made by Nux. It is a delay and a reverb, and it is very cool. Next up, basically a Klon clone. You guys have seen these around. It's pretty good. And then another Klon clone, but this is a generic one, and a lot of bands prefer this generic one that only costs $50 over this one that costs $200. But both great. Both great. Just depends what you're going for. And those are my guitar pedals. I don't have any more. I'm not a big, huge pedal guy. Playing shows growing up, I never used pedals. Nope. Marshall amp. If I want clean tone, I'll dial down the volume. So here we go. Let's go through the preamps. I have a lot of outboard preamps and a lot of API and Neve, and then a couple other flavors. So let's go through them. 10 vintage APIs from Wally Heider Recording Studio 4 console. I have, this is the input gain, and this is a fader pack down here, so I could push the input gain and pull back the fader, and that's sort of what they used to do on the old boards to make them cream up a little bit. I use these for drums a lot. Great on guitars. Just, they're API 312s. They work. So next up is 8 vintage Neve 1272s, repurposed as preamps. These were originally meant as line amps inside the old 80 series consoles. And they were repurposed by Brent Averill to be preamps. And they sound very thick and good. And I like them a lot. And then for overdubbing, I'll use a pair of 1064s, a Neve 1066. I got a pair of Kelrex right here. pair of Telefunken B72s. I bought these off Alan Sides from Ocean Way when he started selling some gear. And then I have another pair of old 312s here. Vintage API 312s. Pair of Langevin AM16s. Great preamps. I think this is the first transistor preamp ever. Pretty sure. I could be wrong, but it's one of them anyway. Next up, DBX 160 XTs. What's the difference between A's and XTs? They're pretty much the same. They do sound a little different. I sort of like these better on guitar. And I sort of like these better on kick, snare, and bass. Here we got vintage gauge stay level. I bought this at the right time because right after I bought this, man, they went up in price a lot. So I'm glad I got that. I did have to have it recapped, and it has been recapped with the exact era capacitors from 1956 or 4, whenever it was made. Great all around. I mean, you could be doing 20 dB of gain reduction with this on a bass, and you don't hear it. It is awesome. I use it for vocals a lot. I will go for my Neve 1066, straight into this for tracking. Doesn't matter the mic, U87, U47, and you go into a Neve pre, straight into that, straight to tape, whether you're hitting tape or Pro Tools. I usually, when I'm doing vocals, I do it through the burls in the Pro Tools, not on the tape machine, and it just works great. You could put an 1176 in line with that, and that works great too. I think Sylvia Massey did that for a lot of vocals. Another pack of API 312s, and that is my outboard gear. So now we're going to move on to the tracking room, and then after that, we'll go through amps, guitars, and then, if we have time, microphones. So here is the room that I do most of my tracking in. Drums, vocals, some guitars. Guitars mainly stay in the booth, though. And what contributes to the sound in this room is the hardwood floors, without a doubt. I had carpet in here before. It did not sound how it does now. I've tracked full bands, full albums inside my room that I mix in, and it's just not the same. These hardwood floors make a difference. The room contributes to your sound. The most important thing that you are recording is the musician. If they play good and sound good, your mix will be good. It is very crucial, the person you are recording, that they are very good and well rehearsed. That's what makes mixing come together easy. That's what makes things sound good, is when you record something that sounds good. All right, so let's get started. That is an acoustic guitar. I do have some treatment on the walls, and I have various clear sonic panels spread out, and I got more in the other room that I put up depending on what we're going for. That couch acts as an absorber, right? So I got the bounce off the floor that I capture. Sometimes I put a U87 down. It just adds to the room. And we're going to go over the kit and the mics I have on it right now. I actually have a drummer coming through. His name is Ronnie DeCola, amazing drummer from Chicago. He's actually on tour with Local H right now, and he's going to be tracking drums to an EP that I'm doing. So this is the set I have up right now, and when Ronnie comes in, I'll probably switch back to my other set that I'll show you in a minute, just because it's more of a rock set. And this is a 1970 Slingerland, and it has really good tone to it. It's a smaller kit than my other kit, and I wanted that because I wanted something different. All right, 1970. And the cymbals I have on it right now are 18-inch Custom K Dark, 16-inch Custom K Dark. I should have went with a 19-inch, but the 16, it decays too fast for a lot of things I want to do. Where this one sounds great. I wish I would have bought an 18 and a 19 instead of a 16 and an 18. So I'll probably have a 19 coming at some point. Hi-hats, dark custom Ks, and then an old 1960s ride. And then I have some other hi-hats here that are old from the 60s that belong with that. What else do I got here? This is, I think, an 18-inch old Zildjian, probably from the 80s. Got a couple more snares, a Ludwig Acrolite, a current edition Black Beauty, and an old 80s Tama Art Star, big wood snare. Currently on here right now, I have a 1974 Superphonic, which is an amazing snare drum. I have a Super Kick 2 on the batter head, and Aquarian Classic Clairs on both toms. I use these snare weights. I like them a lot on my toms. They're made for a snare too, but I use them on my toms. And that's pretty much the kit right now. Let's go over the miking technique. On this stand here, this is not necessarily a drum room mic, but I keep this Sony C48 available for any tambourine, tracking, vocal, anything that's needed. Keep it available. It's a great sounding mic. It's Sony's version of a U87, I would say. It's not tubed. Great microphone all around. Very clear, detailed sound. That is a Yamaha CP, little piano. And on the kit, I have a Yamaha MZ204, a sub-kick mic from Solomon, snare top and bottom SM57s, 421 U5s on toms, AKG 451E on the hi-hat, and the overheads are MA300s from Mojave. I used to always use AKG 451Es as my overheads, but as soon as I got these Mojave MA300s, I used them as room mics, and then I put them on overheads, and now they live on overheads. Another mono room mic is this Sony C38, just capturing the kit there. Another great old Sony mic, not tubed. It's just like a U87. Doesn't sound the same, but just different. And then stereo room mic is this dual ribbon mic, the mighty R88 from AEA. This is always on my kit. It just sounds great. And that is all the microphones on the kit currently. If you're wondering what this piece of equipment is here, my son just got home from the military and he brought home a piece of a fighter jet. This is off of an F-16 fighter jet. He was in the Air Force. Just finished his 4 years. So for monitoring, I do have this Furman. It is a 6-channel headphone amp. And this comes off, doesn't matter if I'm in the box, off my summing mixer, or my console. This is the headphone feed for in here. And it works out good. And this is coming through the wall. I'll show you that in a second. Let me show you this for you drummers out there. I haven't used this yet, but this is a reverse dot. This is a control sound. This is a reverse dot. Let me know what you think about them. Bought that a few months ago. I haven't put it on yet. So, all the microphones in this room, including the headphone amps and all that, let me move this out of the way, are fed into this wall snake. So I have 24 inputs, mic inputs, headphone amps, more for my Neves, and then instrument DIs. I actually just made this myself. And that goes straight through to the studio into the preamps or whatever I want. So now we're going to go over some guitars, and then we're going to go into the amp booth. First off, I had to get the lighting in here for you, because if I didn't put a light this way, you wouldn't be able to see these guitars too well. Second of all, I want you to know, because people have asked in the past, I'm recording this video on an iPhone 11 Pro Max. I also use a GoPro, but most of my videos is just the iPhone. All right, let's get started. This is my 1979 Gibson Les Paul Custom. It is a Silverburst. Back in 2001, I found out I was having my first son, and I walked in a Guitar Center, and I seen this. I wanted a Black Beauty. This was sitting there for $17.99. This is an all original Gibson Les Paul Silverburst. It's got the T-top pickups in it, dated years, everything's correct, everything original all the way down to the tuning keys, the bridge, everything. And it turned green over the years. It was discolored when I got it. And that's a 1979 original Les Paul Custom. Nothing sounds like it. It's amazing. Up next, 1979 Fender Stratocaster. This thing is cool as hell. It's got awesome checking on it. And it's all beat up. And let me tell you what this guitar is. I walked into a guitar store, maybe 2012 or 13. And there was this guitar sitting there behind the counter, and I could tell it was old. And I go, how much for that guitar? They're like, we didn't bring it in yet. I go, and my friend worked there, sort of friend, acquaintance. I go, oh, you didn't bring it in yet? Well, how much is it going to be? He goes, well, it's not working right now. I go, well, how much for it as it sits? He thought about it. He goes, give me $500. Went to the gas station, grabbed $500, came back, bought it, and now I got a 1979 Fender Stratocaster. The only thing it needed was to be rewired. All original pickups, all original hardware, an amazing guitar. So those are my two 1979s. So in no particular order, I'm just going to go from left to right, top to bottom. This is a 1972 Gibson SG, all original with its original tarback pickups, and this thing sounds like a monster. To the right, I have a 1978 Gibson Les Paul Special, P90 pickups, all original, beautiful guitar. I use that all the time. That's one of my favorite guitars that I have. To the right of that is an Ibanez Artist. I bought that from the same music store and the same acquaintance that I bought that off of. Again, $500, I believe, somewhere around there. And it's all original, 1978 Gibson Les Paul Artist. And that guitar I played out live for a decade. This was my main guitar live. It's an amazing guitar. It's a player model. I put that on the back of it probably 10 years ago to try and protect it after I'd been scratching the shit out of it. It's got the volute on it. Amazing guitar. It's heavy. Sort of reminds me of a cross between an SG and maybe a Les Paul. It does have a belly on it. It's got the full binding. Beautiful guitar. Awesome sounding guitar. To the left, I recorded a band and I got paid. The next day, I went to a guitar show about 40 minutes from here. And this Telecaster, which is an old Fernandez from the 80s, was sitting there. I asked the guy how much. He said $600. I said, could you do $400? He said no. And he goes, I'll do $500 and throw in a vintage Fender case for it, hard shell case from the 70s. And I think it was $550. He said, I'll do $550 and throw in a vintage Fender hard shell case. And I picked up this little Telecaster Deluxe. And I have to tell you, man, this thing plays like a dream. And it is a Fernandez, not a Fender. Made in Japan, double binding. It just sings. Great instrument. G&L bass. I bought this. This is a 1991 G&L bass with a maple neck. It's an SB1. It is in mint condition. I bought this new old stock off a guy that worked in the G&L factory, and he had 4 of them brand new. I have the case, all the paperwork, everything for this, including the original cardboard box it came in. He had 4 different basses there and like 2 guitars. And I wanted a bass because I started playing bass in a cover band around the city. And I bought this, and I don't regret it. This thing sounds like a piano when you hit a note on it. Amazing bass. So I'm basically the first owner of that right there. Next up, another G&L. Amazing guitar. This is a 1987 G&L ASAT. No pickups. Sound like these pickups right here. These are P90s. I think this is like G&L's version of the P90. Absolutely freight train sounding pickups. I actually recorded a full album from a band Lip. You can look them up. And the main guitar for that entire album, they were a 3-piece band. I basically did it all live and overdub vocals. He had a late 80s ASAT with the same pickups in it. And ever since I recorded that album, I'm like, oh, no, it just doesn't sound the same. I try and get like guitar tones that rough and raw and raunchy. Didn't get them. That freight trainy, didn't get them. I buy this, go through some of my Marshalls, all of a sudden I'm getting that tone again. This guitar kicks ass. G&L ASAT. This is an older one. This is an 87. You get a 90s, whatever. That's a badass guitar. This guitar, if it looks familiar to you, this is a 1992. I bought with a broken neck. I made a video on how I repaired it. So if you YouTube search Les Paul or headstock repair, you'll find it. Or just go look in my videos. You'll find it. I did an extensive video on how I repaired this guitar. It has been playing like a dream ever since. It was all original. I bought it in the case, all original. Since then, I've been through a couple pairs of pickups. I bought Pearly Gates from Seymour Duncan. Took those out, bought custom buckers. That's what's living in there right now. Underwound, unpotted, custom buckers. And then I swapped out the hardware. This is a 1974 Les Paul custom bridge. And it's all redone, basically like a custom shop. And including the tuners. And it's aged nickel hardware now, which I prefer, including the tuners. Few more guitars we got to go through here. These ones over here. First off, this is a 2008 SG Epiphone. I swapped out the wiring harness and put vintage capacitors in there, paper and oil capacitors, and I did 50 style wiring. That improved it because the wiring in Epiphones aren't that good. This guitar plays well, and I keep it on the stand all the time to grab and just play. Then the Pearly Gates from Seymour Duncan that I took out of that guitar, I put in this guitar. That made it even better. This is an amazing playing guitar. I compare it to my friend's American-made SG that's stock. He brings it over to record, and it's good. It's comparable. Great guitar, good intonation. It's still an Epiphone, but it works, and it works great. Right here, another Epiphone. This is special, and this is one of the cheapest guitars you could get at Guitar Center. This is actually my daughter's guitar. It's got a bolt-on neck. My friend set it up pretty good, and it sounds all right. And then last up is a Yamaha BB300 bass. It's in great condition, plays absolutely amazing. And I actually owned this bass when I was playing in that cover band that I was playing bass for. So now we're going to go through the amps. There is no amp that I love more than JMPs and JCM 800s. JMPs from 1976 to 1980. There might be an 81 JMPs. And JCM 800s up to early 1984. But 83, 82, 81, amazing amplifiers. My favorite, personally. What's the difference? 50 watt, 100 watt, EL34s, 6550s. I have both. I have many JMPs and JCM 800s. They all sound a little different. So let's just go through these real quick. This is a 50 watt 1979 JMP, and this has EL34s in it. All my amps, all my Marshalls are all original, not modded. So this is an original 50 watt JMP. This is a 100 watt JMP, and this has 6550 tubes in it. 1983 JCM 800, this has 6550s in it, and this is 50 watts. The difference to me between 6550s and EL34s, EL34s have a more squelchy sound to them. I think 6550s sound warmer. Personally, that's what I get from them. Let's go into my amp booth. Now, I'm always set up, especially right now, because we're doing, again, working on an EP, pre-production, scratch tracks. So I just have SM57s on a couple different amps just for quick use, and I can move them around to whatever. And then an SM7 for vocals. And these are the headphones I mainly use. I have like 12 to 16 pairs of these. They're great at isolation, and they sound really good too. This is an old pair. They're called Control Acoustics. Look them up. I used to be able to get them really cheap. I don't know what they are now, but great. I've had them for 10 years. Still working. Let's go through some amps here. First of all, those are my Tama Artstar 2 drums from the 80s. They're hard Canadian maple. Those are piano white. They're coated on the inside and the outside. And that's probably what I'm going to set up for the next session. Moving to the left, this is a Riviera, all tube. I think this is early 90s. And then this is the foot switch for it. Now we'll go from left to right. This is a digital amp. It's a Fender Mustang. And I bought that just for practicing. I like it. It sounds digital. And then I have 1961 Ampeg Jet. Great amp. Love this amp. Did a full album with just that amp. 1958 Gibson GA6. And yes, that thing sounds amazing. What is this? This is a 1959 Airline. This is from the old Sears catalog. Great surf rock amp too. This is an old Kalamazoo. This is just a organ mate speaker. This is actually solid state. This is one of those Epiphone cheap 112 speakers you could get, but what's actually in there is a vintage G12M 25 watt blackback. That's one of my favorite speakers from Celestion from the 70s. I have a 1981 first year JCM 800. That's got the original G65s in it. 1978 JMP combo. That I have an anniversary 75 and a G30, a vintage 30 and an anniversary 75 in there. And this is the Marshall 410. It's got 410, I think they're called L35s or something like that. Great little 8 ohm cab, and it's got a lot of low end, surprisingly. Moved over here, got a Bassman. I'm not sure the exact year of this Bassman. I think it's early 70s, late 60s. It's a 50 watt. And then this cab I know is a 1963 with the original 212s. Great, bubbly, clean tone. And then when you turn it up, it's loud, very loud, but it does break up in a beautiful way. I want to show you my most used pick is this one from Guitar Center. That's what I use the most. This is the older version. It's more shiny. And then they came out with this one, which is more of a matte finish. And I use this all the time. It's just because I'm used to them. All right, let's go through some cabs. That is a 1978. And it has 55 hertz Rolas, which are G12H30s. That's what's in there. 1979, and this has G12M 25 watt blackbacks. That's the original cab to that JCM 100 watt, or sorry, JMP 100 watt. And then that is a 1983 JCM 800 with T75s. And this is pretty much all my amps. I take those off. I put them on a stand when I'm miking them up. I had to turn them sideways because I ran out of room. But I'm very happy with all my amps. All these little combos do something that I like a lot. Okay, we're going to start with the tube microphone. This is a Studio Classic, but it is a clone of one. It is a Flea U47. Great sounding microphone. I use it for drum room, of course, vocals for singers that could sing, bass, guitars, just an all-around beautiful sounding mic. I have compared this to a few different real U47s with VF14 tubes, New Vista tubes, you name it. And the real ones to me always sound a little bit of a percentage better. Sometimes 3%, sometimes 8%. But this is very close and less than a quarter of the price. So great microphone to have, and I love it. Very warm, big, round sounding microphone. It is a studio classic for a reason, and it's been used on all the classic people that you love. Comes with the power supply. It's all tube, well built. It's a U47. Next up, this is a new old stock. Bought it off a TV station. AKG D12. I mean, I've used it, but when I got it, it was brand new. All right, so this is Neumann KM84. Beautiful sounding mic from Wally Heider Recording Studio. Another mic from Wally Heider Recording Studio. U87. I think this is a 1974. Wally Heider Recording. WHR. Great sounding mic. This is a newer case, but an old vintage FET 47. I bought this off the owner from Pachyderm Studios. This could be what Nirvana used on In Utero. Could be, could not be. Who cares? Just great sounding mics. They're classics for a reason. This is a very long microphone. Another one I got, new old stock. This is from the 70s. This is a Sennheiser 441. So a radio station slash TV station, I bought a group of mics off of them. That D12 was one. This is one. I got two SM81s brand new in the boxes. The USA made ones. Maybe I'll pull those out. A 441, great microphone for a lot of things. Vocals, guitar. It's a dynamic mic. Throw them on whatever you need. So that's a 441. This here, this little mic, is a Beta 98. Look how little that thing is. Amazing snare drum microphone. Thank me later, Beta 98 snare drum. Top of the snare. And then we have Royer's Mistake. This is the Royer R101. Ribbon microphone. The mistake Royer made is they stopped selling these. This is an amazing microphone on guitar. This is one of my favorite microphones for electric guitar. It's a lot bigger than a Royer R121, but it's a great mic. Let me pull out a 121. So this is a Royer 121. And look at the size difference. All right, let's go. Move on to Beyerdynamic, another great microphone company. Another ribbon microphone, dual ribbon. Throw this on a Marshall cab, put it through an API 312, call me up and thank me in the morning. This is an amazing sounding microphone. You don't even need to blend it with anything. Beyer M201, beautiful mic, sounds great. To me, it's the dynamic version of this mic. Let's get this out of the way. These two mics I got new old stock, walked into a local guitar shop. They had them sitting there. It is a pair of D190s. I actually did a video comparing these to some 57s. Never used, new old stock with the clips. The paperwork's underneath. D190s. And they sound good. Maybe a little brighter than a 57. They don't have that mid scoop of a 57. Maybe the low end's a little different. This is a microphone. It's an EV, Electro Voice. I think it's called the DL42. Again, WHR, an old microphone from an old studio. It's a DL42. I'm almost sure it is. Yeah, there it is right there, DL42. Kind of lo-fi sounding, pretty cool though. Comes with the stand to hold it up on the floor or whatever. This might be like a broadcaster or an interview mic. It's a shotgun microphone. Picks up from a side address here. Not the front. Kind of lo-fi sounding mic. All right. Let's get down. See what we got here. You see my one AKG D12E. Here's the other one. The difference between these older E's and the newer ones don't have transformers. The older ones from the 70s do. but you do need to see this 10 dB pad. You do need a pad with them because you'll clip these mics pretty easy if not. I got a pair of these. The other one's on my hi-hat right now. Here is a pair from that radio station, TV station. Basically, new old stock, Shure, SM81s. A lot of rock records were done with these. A lot of live shows were done with these. Pair of SM81s. I got these in the original cardboard boxes sealed. They literally never used them. I think I have 4 Sennheiser 421 U5s. I use a lot of Crown Royal bags as dust covers. I just bought a bunch off the internet. You've seen 421s before. They're on my toms right now. I will show you this. The difference between, let's see if this one's wrapped up too. It is. The difference between, I'm going to show you the difference. A current version and the old U5. So the old U5 is a little longer than the new ones that you could buy from Sweetwater, and it's got a metal end here. The new ones doesn't, and pretty much I think that's the only difference. The new ones are a little shorter and don't have the metal end, and the clips are metal on the old ones. I don't know if they are on the new ones, but I love 421s on toms, kick drum. You could use them for vocals. I've used them for horns. You could use them for pretty much anything. You could put them on snare. Great mics. I got 2 of these. This is an old SM57. It's a Unidyne 3. Same thing as a new 57. It's a little different. These are made in the USA. A pair of 545s. They come in these old cases. It's buttoned up, of course. This is a 545. It's just like an SM57, but an older one. The difference between sound-wise between this and a current SM57 is it doesn't have the scoop mids that the new ones have. To me, maybe these are a little brighter too. I don't know. Could just be me. All right. So what else we got? I don't want to care about all that. Great microphone. Audio-Technica Pro 37. And besides that, just a bunch of random mics. I got 3 or 4 of these. These are Beyerdynamic D35s, I believe they are. What's cool about them is these clip right on toms. You don't have to worry about stands. Like 3 of those, and then a pair of these Yamaha MZ 106s, which is basically like an SM58. So that is pretty much it. Nothing too exotic. SM57s on the guitar cabs, 421s on the toms, 57s on the snare. I do try different things, but what makes the biggest difference is the different players. I can mic up a drum kit with 10 mics, not change the mics or the drums at all, have a drummer come in and track, the next day have a different band, have a drummer come in and track, and the drum tracks will sound completely different. I have done that 100 times. The player makes the difference. Thank you for watching. This is like an updated studio tour. I will be posting some mix videos coming up relatively soon. And stay musical.